Hello, welcome back to Algebra 1. This is a video over Unit 9, Section 2, and what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be solving quadratic equations by factoring. And this is really just an extension of what we just did, but we're going to add in a couple of extra steps, okay? So let's do this. Here's a list of things that we want to do. Write the equation in standard form. Okay, setting one side equal to 0. We're going to factor the polynomial, okay, and then apply the zero product property, which we just did in the last section. Solve those equations, and then check the solutions for reasonableness. Okay, so real quickly, standard form looks like this. So make sure we write this part down. So standard form of a quadratic means I have ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Okay, where all of my terms of my quadratic are set equal to 0. Okay, notice how my largest exponent is 3, is 2, and then this exponent of 1, and then there is no exponent or variable here on this constant term for c. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So the first thing I want to do, it says, what is x squared minus 6 equals 16x plus 30 rewritten in standard form. So this is the first step that we want to do. Whenever we're solving a quadratic, what we want to do is we want to move each of these other terms to the other side of the equation. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 16x from both sides. Okay? And so my equation is going to look like this. X squared minus 16x minus 6 is equal to 30. Okay? Now remember that I can't, none of these are like terms, okay? So I can't combine them, so we just leave it like that. All right, now if I subtract 30 from both sides, all right, then this is going to give me x squared minus 16x minus 36 is equal to 0. Now notice here that negative 6 and negative 30, those are both constant terms, so we could combine those to get our value there, okay? So that's the first thing, all right? Okay, and then factored. Okay, so let's go ahead and factor this guy. And we can do the box method. And let's do x squared here, negative 36 here. I'm going to put x and x in those two spaces for those two values to multiply to x squared. And then two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 36, but then they need to add to negative 16. And this one's kind of tricky, but it's actually going to be minus 18, okay, and then a positive 2, okay? There's a lot of combinations of numbers that are going to multiply to 36, but they need to add to negative 16, okay? So over here we can check that and verify. Negative 18x is going to go in this box because negative 18 times x gives me negative 18x. 2 times x is going to give me 2x. In this box, we combine our like terms here in the middle, and that's going to give me negative 16x, which is what we were looking for, so we're good. So what we've done, and what we now need to do, now that we've factored it, we rewrite our equation as x plus 2 times x minus 18, and each of those are set equal to 0, okay? So now that we've done that, now that we've factored this, we're going to set each of these equal to 0 and solve. So I got x plus 2, set that equal to 0. I'm going to do x minus 18 and set that equal to 0. Subtract 2 from both sides, and so then as a result, I'm going to get that x is equal to negative 2. Okay, here I'm going to add 18 to both sides, so I'm going to get that x is equal to positive 18. Okay, so at this point, all right, we've solved this, right? And this was, I think, this is what they wanted us to do, then factored. And then it says, what values of x make this equation true? Okay, so we solved these values, okay, but let's go ahead and let's check these, okay? So what I want to do, check that x is equal to 2 and x is equal to negative 18. So let's start with x equals positive 2. All right, now in this, I want to check this in the original state, in the original equation. So I'm going to plug in 2. So I'm going to do 2 squared, all right, minus 6. Okay, is that equal to 16 times 2 plus 20? I'm sorry, plus 30. And I've got these backwards. This should be a negative 2, and this should be a positive 18. So I'm going to plug in negative, negative. Okay. And this should be a 30. All right, so plus 30. All right, so my bad. Okay, so now 2 squared, negative 2 squared. If I take negative 2 times negative 2, that's going to give me positive 4, okay? And then we're going to subtract 6, all right? Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take 16 times negative 2, which is going to give us negative 32 and then plus 30, okay? Now, 4 minus 6, that gives us negative 2. Negative 32 plus 30 also gives us negative 2. That's true, so this is a solution, okay? Now, the next thing I want to do is plug in 18 and see if that holds true. So I'm going to do 18 squared. Give me a second here. 18 squared minus 6 is equal to 16 times 18 and then plus 30. Okay, so let's check that. Now, 18 squared is 18 times 18, which is 324, okay, minus 6. 16 times 18 is going to give us 288, and then plus 30. Okay, so 324 minus 6 is going to give us 318, okay, and then 288 plus 30 also gives us 318. Okay, so that's a true statement, so this also works. Okay, so that's how we can verify if our equations are true or not, okay, if we have the right solutions. All right, let's go ahead and solve this guy. All right, and the same thing goes, okay? What I want to do is I want to move all my terms over to the other side of my equation, set it equal to 0, factor it, solve, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's subtract 12x from both sides. And so we're going to get 12x squared minus 12x minus 4 is equal to positive 5. Okay, the next thing I want to do is subtract 5 from both sides. And so I'm going to end up getting 12x squared minus 12x minus 9 is equal to 0. Okay, so now that I've got this in standard form, we want to factor this, all right? And so, and one of the things that we can do, okay, in this, let's not factor it just yet. What I want to do, each of these terms are divisible by 3. Let's make these numbers a little bit smaller, okay? You don't have to do this. You'll end up getting the same answer, but if you can divide by certain numbers to make these smaller, then this should work, okay? So let's do this. Let's do 12 divided by 3 is going to give us 4x squared minus 4x, and then minus 3 is equal to 0. Now remember, 0 divided by 3 is just 0, okay? So now this is the quadratic that we want to factor. So 4x squared minus 4x minus 3 is equal to 0. So this is a little bit easier to factor, okay? So I'm going to put a 4x squared here. I'm going to put a negative 3 here. Now let's do this. Let's just do 2x and 2x. Let's do a positive 1 and a negative 3. And when I do that, okay, I'm going to do 2x times 1 gives me a positive 2x. Negative 3 times 2x gives me a negative 6x. When I combine negative 6x and 2x, it's going to give me negative 4x, which is what we're looking for, so we've factored this correctly. So now what we can do is we can write it as 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 3 and set that equal to 0. Okay, now that I've set each of these equal to 0, let's move this up over here, rewrite it. I'm going to do 2x plus 1 equals 0, and then 2x minus 3 equal to 0. Okay, so here I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. 2x is equal to negative 1. Divide both sides by 2. So I get that x is equal to negative 1/2. Okay, here I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and so I get that 2x is equal to positive 3. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and I get that x is equal to 3/2. Okay, and so that's what I'm doing here. Okay, now I'm not going to check this, but that's the idea. All right, but let's go ahead and answer this question. So what are the solutions of the equation? That's the same thing as asking me to solve this. Okay, so same thing. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3x from both sides. Now over here, I can combine these guys as like terms because they both have an x. Okay, that's going to cancel out. I've got 4x squared minus 10x is equal to positive 24. Subtract 24 from both sides, okay, and so we end up getting 4x squared minus 10x minus 24 is equal to 0. Okay, so now at this point, because all these numbers are even, this is in standard form, what I want to now do is divide everything here by 2, okay, to make these numbers a little bit smaller, all right? So this is going to give me 2x squared minus 5x minus 12 is equal to 0, okay? So now what I'd want to do is I want to factor this, all right? So let's do the box method, okay? I'm going to put a 2x squared here. I'm going to put a negative 12 here. So I'm going to put 2x here and an x. Those are the two numbers that are going to multiply to 2x squared. And then two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 12. And so let's try some numbers out. Let's try negative 4 here. And then let's try positive 3 here. Okay, those two numbers are going to multiply to negative 12. We want them to these two boxes to add up to negative 5x. So let's do this. Let's do negative 4 times 2x gives us negative 8x. And then 3 times x gives me a positive 3x. Okay, I'm going to combine these. And we do, in fact, get negative 5x. Okay, so we've done this correctly. Now, guys, when I factor these, okay, I'm pretty good at it. Remember that the box method is a trial and error process, okay? Try numbers out. If it doesn't work, then try it again, okay? And keep trying all the combinations until you find the right combination. Okay, so now what I can do is I can write out and I can get 2x plus 3 times x minus 4 equals 0, okay? And so at this point, I want to set each of my terms, each of my factors, equal to 0. Okay, and so here I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. All right, so then we're going to get 2x is equal to negative 3. Divide each side by 2, so then x is going to equal negative 3 halves here. And then over here, we'll just add 4 to both sides, so we get that x is equal to a positive 4. Okay, and that's all we're doing for this page. All right? Okay, on this guy, what we have is this. It says that a rectangle has a length that is 2 inches greater than its width, and its area is 168 square inches. The equation x times x plus 2 equals 168 represents this situation, where x represents the width of the rectangle. So we want to know what are the dimensions. Okay, so here's what we got. If I draw a picture of this real quick, okay, this length here is x, this is x plus 2. Okay, if I take my area, I'm going to take x times x plus 2, and that's going to give us a total of 168. So that's how they get that. Now what we want to do is we want to solve this equation. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute my x here. So I've got x squared plus 2x is equal to 168. Okay, now what I want to do is I now have a quadratic. Now if I subtract 168 from both sides, I'm going to get x squared plus 2x minus 168 is equal to 0. Okay, so let's go ahead and factor this guy. So I want to put x squared here and then negative 168 in this box. So I'm going to put x and x, okay? And so two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 168 but add the 2 is going to be a positive 14 and a negative 12. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to take negative 12 times x, which gives me negative 12x. I'm going to do 14 times x, which gives me 14x. Now, if I combine these two boxes, we're going to get a positive 2x out of that. So what we've done is we've factored this correctly, okay? So now I can set up my two equations. X plus 14 times x minus 12 is equal to 0. Now, if I solve for x here, I've got x plus 14 equals 0. And then x minus 12 is equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 14 from both sides, and I get that x is equal to negative 14. Here I add 12 to both sides, and I get that x is equal to 12. Now what you're probably wondering is, we got two different answers for x, okay? However, we're looking for this value of x here, which is a distance. and distance is always positive. So we choose, okay, choose this, all right, choose because it is positive, okay, and that's what we've got. So then our dimensions to answer the question, okay, are going to be this, that it's going to be 12, okay, so if my length is equal to x and our width, or my width is equal to x, but my length is equal to x plus 2. All right, so if I plug this guy in for x into each of these, I get a width of 12 and a length of 14, okay? And those are my dimensions of that triangle, okay? All right, on this one, it says the product of two consecutive positive integers is 462. What are the two numbers? So if I had some consecutive integer, I would call that x. The next number in that rotation, the next consecutive number would be x plus 1. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to take the product of them, which means I'm going to multiply x times x plus 1 and set that equal to 462. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute my x, so I get x squared plus x is equal to 462. I'm going to go ahead and let me do this up here. I'm going to subtract 462 from both sides. So I get x squared plus x minus 462 is equal to 0. So what I can do is I can solve this equation for x, okay, and I can set x squared in this box, negative 462 in this box. And what I know is that, x and x is going to go here, but I need two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 462 but add to 1. And so that's going to be a positive 22 and a negative 21. So I've got negative 21 times x gives me negative 21x. And then 22 times x is going to give me 22x. Combine these as like terms, and that's going to give me just an x, okay, which is what we're looking for, which is what we got. So now what I've got is I can factor this to x plus 22 times x minus 21 and set each of these equal to 0, okay? So x plus 22, set that equal to 0. X minus 21, set that equal to 0. Solve for each of these, so subtract 22 from both sides, so I get x equals negative 22. Add 21 to both sides, so I get that x is equal to 21. All right, so now because I'm looking for an age, okay, two consecutive positive integers, my first number, so my answer, my solution is going to be 21, and then the next consecutive number would be 22, okay? And so both of those numbers would multiply to 462, so that's what we got. So that's what we're going to do. Now remember, this kind of talks about, why we have to use the zero product property. Always, always, always must be set equal to 0 in order for you to solve. It doesn't work the other way. So hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye!